Void Thrashing is the map where we have to destroy 10 Void Thrashers before they destroy Sergeant Hammer's completely useless fortress. Each set we destroy reveals the next, unless we take too long and they spawn anyway. Void Rifts spawn every 90 seconds. They continuously spawn units until destroyed. All units have the ability to use random spells. There is no way to determine the spells before they are used.
Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis, so he gets slowed down a lot by power overwhelming. Now, the Dragoons, the good thing about them is they actually regen health just passively, so they won't really be getting worn down by the power overwhelming spells that much. Now, with that said, he will struggle a lot with like pushing still, because the random point defense drone will just take millions of Dragoon shots to break. And for rifts, while the Archon dudes from P3 will handle like the initial few rifts, you can't use them for every rift, so you still need Dragoon squads. And you'll probably need to use them for like wave also, then overcharge for pushing into bases, I'm guessing, if you're not going for the Tempest route. So yeah, it's a lot managing energy. His early game isn't that bad actually. In fact, I'd say it's one of the better ones, just because he can like take down the first few sets of rifts just with top bar. So he will be good for just buying you and your ally a lot of time to build up. So yeah, I have him in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Tutu?
I think he's very bad. Because, well, you don't want to use Tempest, because one PDD will make your Tempest do nothing for a long time.
Yes.
Whereas Dragoons shoot faster. So the problem with using P3 is that if you don't have exact vision of the rift, you will not be able to shoot it.
Yes.
So like if you don't see both rifts, you can't shoot it. And if you're too slow moving your camera or mouse around, the unit that spawns out will kill your probe.
Yes.
And then you have no vision of it. Then you're gonna waste like the rest of your shots.
Exactly.
And then you need a very clear plan, which is like you use your first shots to clear the encampments like between the first second area and the first third area. You have to clear those so your Dragoons can control the rifts there in the early game. But if you don't know that, if you don't do that correctly, it's not gonna be good for you. And this is not to mention like whatever enemy comp that you're facing might not be favorable for you.
So you just lose.
So
you lose the map. Not even the mutators.
Normally you can use shield. Normally you can use shield overcharge to defend a wave, but you also need it to push, and you can't really do both. And you can't use your Archon dudes to defend the waves if you're spending all that energy early on. So it's like it's really hard to balance.
Yes.
So yeah, I put him in D.
D. That's actually really bad. Oh my goodness.
He's not.
So what do you think,
Zero? With P0, you can shoot
below Alarak. Yeah.
Essentially, what Tutu saying is he is below Alarak.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Alarak doesn't have reliable recovery on this unit, so unlike Alarak, Artanis squads won't really get worn down. Although I may be slightly biased towards Artanis just because he's like one of my most played commanders. So
we've had that before.
Sure.
Don't worry.
I guess it's like I know I'd be able to do it pretty reliably.
We both know you would.
Yeah. I guess if you don't like know very well like where to place your Dragoons and like how to manage your energy, he can be pretty bad. It's like I'd say he's around C tier though, especially like I don't think he's that much worse than Alarak still.
What do you think, Tutu? How about C tier?
So if you're fighting Zerg, you can't if the first rift spawns like slightly behind the first Thrasher, you just can't kill it. If it's Terran or Protoss, you can sneak around, but you have to know how to sneak around. And if you're sneaking around, they can cast a spell on you and kill you.
Yes.
So
I've had that happen to me.
So many things.
So I can attest to that.
There's so many things that can go wrong, and you have to split 3 probes in the beginning to try to drop your Archons.
Yes,
so I don't think that's a very reliable method. And if you don't use P3, then you can use Orbital Strike, but then now you can't clear the encampments between the base, the first and second Thrashers. Those encampments, you can't clear them, then your Dragoons will be less effective. So I don't really see anything good going for him.
I guess it's just the mid game that he doesn't get worn down. But I see what you're saying here. Although, I think if the rift spawns behind the first Thrasher, can you just like throw one Archon dude into the actual units to get vision, then just throw the other ones? Because you only need one Archon dude to kill a rift. So if it's a side one, you just use one, and then you have 4 more for the difficult rift. It's behind the Thrasher.
So the thing is, like, your probes have to be in like perfect view of the rifts, and you also have to be fast with throwing 5 the Archons, because if you're too slow, then they're gonna spawn. So yeah, and what I'm concerned about is that if you're people who aren't proficient or used to it, they're just gonna waste shots. They're gonna overkill a lot because they don't have another spot to throw the rest, or like they lost vision and now they have nothing to spend the Archons on, and now they're just wasted.
Before we continue, I just want to give a little context. So, to normal viewers, this discussion is mostly not necessarily soloing. Though Tutu did it solo, it's not necessarily for soloing. If you're on the solo queue, you can't rely on your ally to spot you vision. I did play this with an ally, so I could request them personally to ask or to get vision for me. So I don't have to send 3 probes to different spots or have them place a Zerg commander that can just spread Stetlites or Overlords to spots where it can get me vision. So in solo queue circumstances, you can play with an ally, but you can't necessarily command that ally or request stuff from the ally. You will need to send probes because you can't like rely on your ally, right? Especially if you play on like a server where they speak a different language. It won't happen. So please continue. Zero, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, I still think he'd be fine hunting the early game. Like, where would you realistically waste the Archon shots on? Because, like, in the early game, especially, like, no matter where you go, there's gonna be enemies. So even like clearing a bit of the encampment, you're still probably gonna be fine. It's like,
I always use it on rocks personally, but you know, I'm me.
yeah, that also works. It's just, yeah, it's like one Archon dude clears a rift. You have a bunch of. Then you have 4 more to get the potential rift that spawns behind the first Thrasher.
If you get pattern A, your Archon drops, like if you're gonna, your Archon drops will not sync with the waves. So that's another thing to consider.
So you need to
If you're
use the same Archon drop for both the rifts and the first wave.
No, you can't wait that long because you're wasting time.
So you have to use it right away.
So like if it's pattern B, you can use your second set. No, you can use one set on the 2 350 rifts and then the 4-minute wave. But if the wave comes at 3 minutes, then they're gonna hit your base at like 3. They're gonna go around the first Thrasher area around like 3:30 something, and you can't start dropping there because you don't know where the 350 rifts will be. And if you wait until 350 to drop, then you're gonna have to drop them like in your base, and you also have to know where they are on the outside.
Yes, it's very hard to do without an ally.
Very hard to do.
I did this, by the way, with an ally, and I can personally attest. It's like, where, which spot? The base, which base?
Wow,
it's a nightmare.
Whereas, like, currently with Alarak, you have a mothership, you just fly towards it.
Or teleport if you have
I guess
an ally.
Alarak early game is better. It's just I think the longer the game goes, Artanis will be like slightly better. Which I understand. Like the early game's more important. It's just I don't think it's a whole tier difference.
Yeah, I think that's where the question will mainly revolve around. Is Alarak a whole tier worse than, or is Artanis a whole tier worse than Alarak, or is he just worse but still in the same tier? That's for you guys.
I think he also has to care about enemy comp. whereas
I mean,
Alarak less so.
they both still kind of care.
I think maybe I'm biased here, but I care more about spells than whatever the enemy composition is for this kind of mutation. That's me personally.
Because if you're massing Dragoons, Zerglings will kill you.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess you kind of gotta use Zealots, but that's a waste of minerals.
Alarak has an overcharge, so that's a lot less of a problem.
In Artanis' defense, there's one thing he does well. He can siege up observers in various spots in the later game, which I guess Alarak can do to a lesser extent with war prisms, but observers have longer vision range, and they're cloaked. They can't be overcharged though, so there's that.
I just don't think it's easy. It's a lot harder to use Artanis, and I don't think he is better in the mid game. I still think he's not great in the mid game because, yeah, if you can even get there, if you burn all your energy early on, you're gonna have nothing for the mid game.
I personally think Artanis can survive until the mid game at least 70% of the time. You just have to burn more Archon dudes, but the problem the problem for me is, from my experience, when you lose vision, it's just a very feels bad moment because you don't know you can't shoot close enough to the rift that you can actually destroy it in a timely fashion without wasting separate Archon shots as spotter Archons, which is probably the worst role you can give a unit with limited time. And that costs 50 energy.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's part of the waste. It's like I don't have vision. I'm close, so I'll drop one so I can drop another one on top of it, and then
That's a very painful
it's a
moment.
waste, and that happens if you don't
Yes.
have perfects. Yeah, if you're not fast enough.
Yes. So you're either dependent on good RNG or good ally. Actually, yeah, good RNG or good ally. Yeah, that's kind of what you're dependent on. If you have bad RNG, both of them spawn behind the first Thrasher, you're kind of, well, not screwed, because at least they're both in the same area, so you can use the same spotter Archon for both rifts. And then you can use a spotter Archon, and then 2 Archons on the rifts, and then the last you can use to clear a rock or an enemy base. But yeah, I can see that being an issue later on, because you will need that energy for the first few sets of rifts. And even then, for example, if you get a rift that spawns in the very back, you'll need to use your power field to warp in units there, assuming you can get vision with an overseer or observer, or you use Archon dudes, which is a waste of energy in my opinion, for a singular rift at least.
I see what you're saying here. He also has like that aspect of just being helpful for pushing to bases, like shield overcharge.
That
Push
is
overcharge
true.
you
I
and your ally.
I do very
know.
much like his supportive ability. I do think he has a lot of value in synergy, but this is not that discussion. It is individual commander tier list, not synergy.
But that's at the same time, if you're massing Dragoons and you're pushing, you're not gonna have a lot of space to overcharge other people's stuff. If you're pushing with your Dragoons.
Yeah, assuming you two are pushing in different spots, you won't be able to overcharge you and your ally if you're in different places. Although Void Thrashing is a map where there really is only one direction to push at any given point in time. So I'm not sure how relevant that is. Unless you're making Tempests, which I don't recommend if you don't have a good ally who can control the rifts. It's very painful to have to fly Tempests around because your ally can't chase Void Rifts. I'm sorry, Cage.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry, Cage. I didn't mean to.
Oh no. I guess we can go D tier for now, just because I don't think this is going anywhere. But
Okay. D tier it is. I'm sure it will differ very much with your allies level of skill or your RNG. If you get very good response, you'll feel Artanis is stronger because you won't have the struggles of looking for the void rips, trying to manage your energy because they're all the same spots, so the same Archon can clear, or the same two Archons can clear two rifts in part of a base, and you can have even go for Tempest if you want, though I still don't think it's a good idea. But yes, I do like Artanis' support ability, but this is not that discussion. It is for later. Anyway, let's move on.